In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set up a final gather lighting environment using Mental Ray, and also to create a chrome ball, reflected chrome ball, and also Fresnel materials, and also taking a look at the new hypershade of Maya 2016. Right, so this is the result that you can expect. Okay, so now I got a couple of chrome balls you can see in this scene, and this is not lit by any of Maya's lighting system. It is lit entirely with light emitting surfaces using the final gather feature in Mental Ray. So right now I'm going to restart the entire scene. And also I'm going to show you how to create a Fresnel effect, okay, where the edges are reflecting more than the rest of the surface. So first we need to create a ground surface. So holding down to shift, right mouse click, and then move your marking menu to polyplane. Then press R to scale it up. Alright, I'm going to assign a ground material to this plane. So just right mouse click on it and choose assign new material. We do not want the ground to be reflective, so we're going to give it a Lambert material. I'm going to rename this material as ground, and then I'm going to color it a slight beige color. Right, so when I'm done with that, I'm going to recreate another plane material. I can duplicate the existing one by pressing Shift D and pressing W to move it up. Grab the manipulator. Just going to move this a little bit higher. Press E to rotate. Grab the Z-axis line, which is now the highlighted yellow line here, and then press W again to move and then push it back. And I'm going to reassign another material. Right mouse click and assign a new material as well. I'm going to assign a Lambert as well, and for this material I'm going to call it light material. So this surface itself is going to produce the light to illuminate the objects we see in the scene here. And for the color we can leave it as it is, but for the incandescence we can push it up, so you can see now the entire surface turns white. And we can actually bump up the incandescence or the lighting energy a little bit further by clicking on the color swatch here. And then in the HSV, under the V, alright, you can increase the value furthermore by changing the digits from 1 to 5. So this will bump up the brightness significantly. So remember, you want to make this brighter, just click on the incandescence color swatch and then just push up the V value. So once I got this set up, let me just create a sphere. Shift right mouse click and then choose polysphere. Then I'm going to move the polysphere until it sits on the surface. I'm just going to increase the size of this, select the plane and just scale it up a little bit more. And for the sphere itself, while it is selected, I'm going to press 3, okay, so that it appears in a subdivided mode. I'm going to press Q to get back to select. So for the sphere, I'm going to create a chrome material. So I'm going to right mouse click on it and assign a new material. But this time, since I want the material to be reflective, I choose a blend material. I'm going to rename the blend material in the attributes editor as chrome. And the under the color, I'm going to bring it down until it's completely black. And scrolling down until the specular shading, I'm going to bump up the reflectivity all the way to 1. And the specular color, I'm going to push it up all the way to pure white. Okay, now before changing the render settings, I'm just going to hit a render and see what I get. Okay, it doesn't look very nice. First of all, because I'm in Maya software, and if you change the option to Mental Ray and you render it again, you'll get some reflections, but you're not really going to get the lighting effect that is coming out from the plane. That is because we need to set the render settings. Now when you click on the render window, you can actually access the render settings by clicking on this clapperboard with a gear next to it. So this will allow you to access the render settings. So make sure you're rendering using Mental Ray, and under the common settings, scroll right down to the bottom and open up the render options. Scroll down some more and get rid of the default light. And under the quality settings, make sure you turn on Final Gather. Okay, so that is good enough. I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to re-render it again. Now, before I re-render it again, I'm going to click on this image here, or this button here, to save the previous render into a image buffer. Then I'm going to click on render again. Now this time the render takes a little bit longer, but the result is much more realistic. You can see the chrome ball appears like a metallic ball bearing sitting on a plane surface, and even the shadow is quite soft and fairly realistic. Okay, there are some splotchiness noise here which you can correct by increasing the samples. Okay, so now we've created the chrome ball. Let's create another chrome ball, and we change the properties. So I'm going to duplicate this chrome ball, Shift D, and then press W, and then move this ball aside. Okay, so it's always a good practice to create a separate camera for rendering, because this is our working camera, the perspective view. So I'm going to create a new camera, create a camera and aim, and the new camera will appear here. So I'm going to switch over to this camera view by clicking on panels, perspective, and then the new camera, and then I'm going to manually shift the camera until it positions itself, or rather I position it so that I can see everything. So I'm going to turn on some feature of this camera by clicking on view, camera settings. I'm going to tear out this camera settings so I don't have to access it again. I'm going to turn on the resolution gate, and I'm also going to turn on the overscan. So in any case, I resize the window, right? It's going to fit the whole view into this new sized window. So I can close this window now. Now, how do I get the renderer to render the camera view? So again, I need to go back to render settings, right? Click on the common settings, and under the renderable cameras, instead of this perspective renderable camera, I'm going to choose camera 1. And then I'm going to close this. So this time, every time I hit the render, it's going to render the new camera. So currently, because we only have one material, so both of the balls are going to look very similar. So I'm going to close the render window. Now, I'm going to access the hypershade window. Now, previously, you can access it through the menus, but in Maya 2016, it is now very convenient to access the hypershade by clicking on this button here. So this is the hypershade window. You have the attributes, okay, attributes editor listed here. Then there is a material view, a new feature in Maya 2016 that allows you to preview what the material looks like. Okay, so let's just try it by clicking on one of the materials here in the material browser. And the default renderer is the Mental Ray. You can switch between hardware and Mental Ray, but it is always at Mental Ray. And you can change the different types of rendering previews. Okay, since we are working on a sphere, we're going to use a sphere. And you can even change the backgrounds to simulate the reflections, okay, on the surface. So I'm going to try the exterior 2 color, okay, just because it looks nicer. And over here, this is our workspace. Right, this is where we can connect the different nodes of the materials. And on the left side here, we have the create panel where we can create different nodes and different types of textures, or different tools and utilities to control our materials properties. Okay, so right now you can see several materials really messing up the whole place here. So there are a few buttons here, one of it which is the input and output, and also show input and output. So the workspace, you can click and create multiple workspaces here, but let's organize this by clicking on this button. Alright, so because only the chrome is selected, so it shows the node network of the chrome material, and so this is the result. Okay, so right now, because both of these spheres are using the same material, if I were to change the material properties, for example, if I change the specular color into a rich orangey yellow color, right? Both the materials are going to follow suit. And if I'm going to render this, I'm going to end up with gold-like materials, the balls with a golden sheen. Okay, but what if I want to separate the materials, or I want to duplicate the materials, but I want to change one of the materials? You can actually select the chrome material under Edit, and then you can duplicate shading network. So now you have two identical materials, but there are two separate materials in the browser. So while clicking on the duplicate, you can go to the editor, the attribute editor, and change the name. I'm going to call this pink gold. So as the name suggests, I'm going to change the specular color to a pink color. So now the preview is rendering into a pink color. So I'm going to re-render again in my rendering, in this rendering window. Notice the color did not change. That is because we need to assign the new material to the other ball. So you can do it in a couple of ways. You can middle mouse click and drag and drop it on the sphere. Now if the sphere doesn't change the color, you can try to select the sphere, middle mouse click again and try to drop it on the sphere. Okay, unfortunately this one doesn't work, so I'm going to try another method. So select the sphere, okay, and then move your cursor over the material browser, right mouse click, and then choose the marking menu, assign material to selection. Okay, I think might need to hold on to the shift key. Okay, and then I'm going to try again. Yeah, now it works. So if hovering over the material doesn't work, alright, so you need to select the object that you want to assign a material, holding down the shift and select the material that you want to assign, then right mouse click on the marking menus and then assign material to selection. Okay, so now you can see from the preview here, the sphere is now pink. So I expect that if I render it again, it's going to be pink. Okay, there you go. And even the sphere is reflecting a little bit of light, pink light, back to the surface of the shadow here. Okay, so that is how you duplicate materials and assigning them the new materials to the other objects. Okay, so right now I want to create a object that has a Fresnel reflecting effect. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate this sphere. Okay, and I'm going to reassign a brand new material. So right mouse click, assign new material, and I'm going to create a blend material again. I'm going to close this rendering window. Then I'm going to call this Fresnel reflection. Okay, so whatever materials that you create is going to appear in the material browser here. And there are buttons here that can change the size of the thumbnails, so you can preview what the material is going to look like. So right now what we're going to do for this Fresnel reflection material is to create a material that is going to reflect much more at the edge than in the center. Right? So first I'm going to make it into a very highly polished material. So I'm going to reduce the color to black again. Then the specular color, I'm going to push it all the way to white. And the reflectivity, I'm going to bump it all the way to the end. So it is no different from the chrome material that we set up previously. Okay, so next I'm going to attach it to a node to control the amount of reflectivity on the edge. So I'm going to work on this material. So first click and select on the Fresnel reflection material, and then I'm going to click on this input output button so that it just shows only this material in the workspace. I'm going to maximize this so that we can slowly build up the network. So the first thing we want to control is the by adding a ramp, okay, so that we can create a reflection that that works gradually. Okay, one of my keyboard shortcut buttons is missing. I'm going to bring it back in. Okay, there you go. Okay, so let's go back to here again. So right now I have the Fresnel reflection material node here. So I'm going to control the reflectivity properties of this material. So I'm going to bring in the ramp first. So you can go to the create panel here and type ramp and click on ramp. And I'm going to connect the out alpha to the reflectivity. Now, notice that if you drag an out color, it will only connect to those nodes, those inputs that will accept this value. So for reflectivity, we can't connect it with the out color. So I'm going to choose out alpha and connect it to reflectivity. And if you click on the material node right now, can't really see much of the effect of the ramp acting on the material. This is the preview of the material. So I'm going to click on the ramp, and then I'm going to adjust the ramp where the two colors are close to each other. And you should be able to see the effect of the ramp. So now you can see the black is actually at the bottom, and then the white, right, allows the reflectivity to go through. Right. So if I switch the colors by dragging the controllers here, the ramp is going to flip upside down. Okay. So right now, this ramp is not working for me because it's only covering the top and bottom. I want to create a ramp where it controls only the edges where it's reflecting, so that it's going to reflect more and gradually it's going to reflect less in the center. So we have to bring in a utility. Okay, there is the sampling info. So you type SAM and bring in an sampling info node. When you click on it, sometimes you don't see the sampling info node here. All right, you have to zoom out, and then it's actually on the right here. So zoom out by just rolling your mouse backwards. And we need to use the sampling info node to control the UV coordinates of the ramp. Okay, so currently we need to attach the facing ratio. So sampler info basically takes information of the camera or the world and controls the axis where the ramp is pointing at. For in this case, we want to control our point of view, so which is the facing ratio. So we want to use the point of view to control the V coordinates. The V coordinates control the vertical axis of that ramp. So right now we want to get this. Okay, let me just maximize this. So we want to get this row of connectors to face this direction. So click on these three bars continuously until the output nodes comes out. So you want to left mouse click and drag this and put it on the V coordinates. Now if you make a mistake, just middle mouse click and drag, and it should disconnect the connection. Okay, let's try that again. So middle mouse click and left mouse click, it will disconnect. Okay, so I'm going to reconnect it to the V coordinates again, and then we are going to observe the result. So you can see right now the ramp is working. However, the ramp is a little bit too extreme. It completely blocks out the center. So we want the transition to be much more gradual, starting from the edge and then gradually become less and less reflective in the center. So let's go back to the ramp, and we're going to adjust the ramp value. So for those of you who don't see your attributes editor, you can also adjust the attribute editor in your default Maya window, and it should still work. So what I'll do is I'm just going to pull the two colors separate further apart. If you want to create a new color, you can click on the ramp here itself, and also you want to delete the color, you can click on the X box below. So I'm just going to pull this out some more. And I'm going to try to allow more reflections to come out in the center. For the interpolation, if I change the interpolation to either exponential up, so when you do exponential up, there's going to be a tighter line in the upper side. So if I do exponential down, it's going to put the spread more towards the downside, which is this down is usually left and then up is usually right. Okay, so now we can see this nice transition, but the black color is really covering up a lot of reflections. So if you change or control the color of black, make it more into gray, now you notice that the gray will allow more reflections to pass through. Okay, so now we have created the Fresnel effect, and then we can do a test render and see the result. So you can see the behavior of the reflection is a little bit different than the other two chrome balls here. The reflectivity is very strong in these two balls, whereas the reflectivity gradually tapers off in the center. Okay, if you can't see the result here, maybe I can bump up the color to a little bit darker, and then let's save this in the image buffer, and then let's do a render again. And now the effect is much more obvious. Now you can see a much more darker spot in the center. It's not reflecting as much as in the edge here. And we can compare by scrubbing between the two image, the previous image that was rendered. Okay, so this is how you create the Fresnel effect. So one of the cool features that you can do is to create a Fresnel effect where the edge is actually glowing. So this is good for like replicating a planet, right? For example. So I'm going to download a planet map. Okay, so I'm just going to download a planet Earth texture. Okay, this one looks good. Alright, this one is taking a little bit too long, so I'm going to use another image. Okay, so this one is working now. So I'm going to save the image into my source images folder, and then I'm going to attach it to a new sphere. So shift right mouse click, create a new sphere. I'm going to press 3 to subdivide this. Okay, and then I'm going to apply a planet Earth material onto it. So for this, I'm going to apply just right mouse click, assign new material. I'm going to give it a form material instead, and then I'm going to assign for the color node, clicking on the color node here, I'm going to assign the Earth texture. Okay, so if you want to see the texture, you have to press number 6 on the viewport, so you can see the Earth texture appearing. So if I were to render this, the Earth is not going to look very interesting. It's just going to look like a plastic sphere, plastic ball, a highly reflective plastic ball. So I'm going to put this image and save it in the buffer. Now I'm going to create a sort of like a fake atmosphere on this planet. So select the planet Earth. Okay, go to the form material, and we are going back to our hypershade. All right, and then we're going to do some tricks to this material network. So I'm going to click on the form material. Let me call this Earth material, and then click on the input and output nodes. Okay, so as you can see, let me just maximize this. I think for this one, I'm going to get rid of the exterior color so that it renders a little bit faster. So Okay, let's take a look. So we have the image, and it already has this UV map, because the sphere has a default UV map and it's mapped onto the color. Okay, you can drag a box to select to rearrange this. And so this is the result. So now we want to use a ramp to control the incandescence. So we want to create a glow to simulate the atmosphere. Now for the reflectivity, I'm going to bring it down slightly. I do not want the ball to be so reflective. Okay, so now it's no longer reflective. In fact, reflectivity is now down to, I just put maybe a very tiny amount. Okay, because I could have used a Lambert material previously, but this is good enough. So next, I want to create a ramp. So I'm going to create a ramp, and then I'm going to, this time the ramp, I'm going to use the out color to connect to the incandescence. Okay, and if you click on the color itself now, again, the material, because of uh, the ramp is just going to overpower the entire texture. So we need to adjust the ramp. Okay, because we want the edges to glow, so we need to flip the two colors here. So I'm going to drag the white and put it over here. And the interpolation, I'm going to click on exponential down, so it's going to spread down. So again, because you can see the ramp is spreading halfway up and down, I'm going to use the sampler info again. And using the sampler info, I'm going to connect to the ramp's UV coordinates. Okay, I'm going to click on these three bars until all the facing ratio button is pointing this way. Open up the UV coordinates, click on the facing ratio and connect to the V coordinates. Okay, and go ahead and adjust the ramp so that we can control the exterior color edge here. So right now we just want a thin edge that is glowing. So I'm going to push the white color all the way to the end, and then perhaps the black. Just going to push it closer so that now the reason why is it so slow is because every time I change the values, it is rendering the preview up here. Okay. So if you want the planet Earth to have a blue glow, so you click on the white color swatch, and then you can change it into a bluish hue so that it looks as if it has a, okay, I'm going to drag this black because right now my atmosphere looks very thin. I'm going to pull it back out again. Okay, just a tiny hint of an atmosphere, and then this really enhances the look of the planet Earth texture. So once you got this done, okay, we can do a test render, and we can compare it with the uh, image that we have done previously. And here you can see the glow that is going on the edge of the planet Earth. So this is one area which you can use the ramp and the sampler info to control the shading of your texture. Okay, so I think that's a lot of information to go through, so you can rewind the video and watch how I set up the ramp and the sampler info in order to understand how this works. Okay, so please go ahead and try this.